Next time you insult a human, make sure it isn't the last thing you ever do. Admiral Cale Oren had heard the phrase in 1,000 different tongues, but never with the sheer venom that dripped from the lips of the human envoy now standing before the Galactic Council. The room, filled with representatives of dozens of star systems, bristled with the tension that had been building for days. The Council has spoken, intoned the crystalline voice of the VO's delegate, a towering creature composed entirely of refracted light. The Terran Empire is not deemed worthy of a seat within the Galactic Council. Your species lacks the maturity, the wisdom, and the subservience. The human cut in, eyes narrowing. His voice, flat and steady, seemed to draw the oxygen from the room. Don't mistake our patience for acceptance. You've spat on our efforts to join your little club for the last time. A murmur swept through the chamber. The Council, a gathering of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, had never faced such open defiance. The decision to reject humanity's bid for a seat was almost ceremonial, a formality in a process meant to humiliate the upstart species. The humans had risen too quickly, conquered too much space in too short a time, and they lacked the reverence, the awe that other species showed the Council. The Council's leader, the Vicon Prime, more machine than organic, leaned forward, gears whirring with mechanical precision. You dare threaten the Council, human? The human smiled, a cold, humorless twist of his lips. No, Prime, we don't threaten. We warn. The Prime's ocular sensors focused on the human, recalibrating to detect any sign of deceit. None was found. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Run, the human said, voice suddenly soft, almost a whisper. Run while you still can. The Vicon Prime rose from his seat, towering over the human. You will leave this chamber at once. Your empire will be informed that further insolence will be met with swift retribution. The human envoy remained still, his gaze locked on the Prime. There won't be a next time, Prime. You've made your decision. We'll see it through. The tension in the room exploded as the Prime's arm shot forward, a weapon forming from its mechanical limb. But the human was already moving, with a speed that defied even the advanced sensors of the Prime. The human slipped a small device from his coat, pressed a button, and the world went dark for a moment. The chamber was plunged into blackness, the kind that comes from absolute light deprivation. The Council members, each uniquely adapted to their own planet's conditions, struggled in the sudden void. When the lights flickered back on, the human was gone, and in his place stood a hologram projected by the device he had left behind. You've underestimated us, the hologram said. The human's voice carried across the chamber with an eerie calm. We're not here to ask for acceptance. We're here to conquer. Gasps and exclamations rippled through the room. The Zyros delegate, its crystalline body refracting the light of the hologram, turned to the Prime. What is the meaning of this? The Prime's mechanical mind raced through probabilities, calculating the odds of an immediate attack. But the human envoy's words lingered like a poison in the air. We have defenses, the Prime said, more to himself than anyone else. They would not dare, the hologram continued, undeterred by the confusion it had sparked. You think your technology, your fleets, your centuries of power make you untouchable, but you've forgotten something crucial, something we've been preparing for ever since we left our solar system. The hologram faded for a moment, replaced by a map of the galaxy. Red dots began to appear one after another, each marking a location familiar to the Council members: critical supply routes, communication hubs, shipyards, and each one of them marked by those red dots represented a target. You should have let us join, the human's voice said as the map continued to light up. But you didn't, so we're going to take what we want. No negotiations, no peace talks, just war. The chamber descended into chaos. Delegates shouted, argued, demanded answers. The Prime attempted to regain control, but the room was already slipping into disorder. The humans had always been a thorn in the Council's side, but this was beyond anything they had expected. The hologram flickered again, the human's face reappearing one last time. You have two choices: run or die. And with that, the hologram vanished, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Admiral Cale Oren, representing the brutal, battle-hardened wider species, looked over to the Prime. His species thrived on conflict, but even he could see the gravity of the situation. They're serious, Oren said, his voice low, almost respectful. The humans are going to come for us. Let them come, the Prime replied. But there was an undercurrent of uncertainty in his mechanical tone. We'll crush them. Oren said, his eyes narrowing. Maybe, the Prime said, his voice almost questioning. Or maybe they'll do what no species has done before. Maybe they'll succeed. Across the galaxy, the human fleets began to move. They had waited, bided their time until the right moment. The Galactic Council had underestimated them, thinking them a nuisance, a species too young and brash to pose a real threat. But humanity had learned, they had watched, studied, and now they were ready. This wasn't a war for territory or resources. It was a war for dominance. The Council had made its choice, and now Earth would make its move. The time for diplomacy was over. The time for war had begun. The human fleets moved like shadows through the void, a vast and coordinated force that had been hidden from the galaxy's prying eyes for years. They were ghost ships, stripped of any identifying markers, their hulls coated in advanced stealth technology that rendered them invisible to even the most sophisticated scanners. They bore no flags, no symbols, only the singular purpose that had driven them to this point. They were going to destroy the Galactic Council. On board the Resolute, Admiral Jonathan Kane stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the holographic map of their targets. It was an old habit, one born from years of command. He didn't need to look to know what his officers were doing. They were the best Earth had to offer, handpicked for this mission. The lights of distant stars cast long shadows across the bridge, giving the scene an eerie calm before the storm. All fleets are in position, Admiral, reported Captain Holton, his voice crisp and steady. We're awaiting your orders. Kane nodded, his expression unreadable. Activate Phase 1. I want those Cal relays down within the hour. Captain Holton relayed the command, and across the fleet, the order was executed with military precision. Ships split off from the main fleet, streaking toward the critical communication hubs scattered throughout the galaxy. These hubs were the lifeblood of the Council's power, enabling instant communication across vast distances. Without them, the Council would be blind and deaf, unable to coordinate their defenses. The ships approached their targets with surgical accuracy, launching a barrage of EMP missiles. The pulses spread out in a web of energy, enveloping the relays and frying their circuits. In minutes, the galaxy's vast communication network was reduced to silence. The Resolute received confirmation almost immediately. Comm relays neutralized, Admiral Holton confirmed. Kane allowed himself a rare smile. Good. Begin Phase 2. Let's see how the Council likes fighting in the dark. The human fleet shifted again, this time dividing into strike groups. Each group had a specific target: shipyards, supply depots, refueling stations. These were the arteries that kept the Council's fleets operational. And now they were exposed, vulnerable to the human onslaught. The first strike group, led by the battleship Valiant, arrived at the largest Council shipyard in the Traveland sector. The shipyard, a sprawling complex of docks and dry docks, was protected by a modest fleet of automated defense platforms along with a few ships in orbit. In peacetime, it was more than enough to deter pirates or insurgents, but this was not peacetime. The Valiant opened fire with its railguns, launching tungsten slugs at a fraction of the speed of light. The slugs tore through the automated platforms before they could even respond, ripping them apart in silent explosions. The other human ships followed suit, bombarding the shipyard with precision strikes. Within minutes, the entire facility was ablaze, the carefully constructed infrastructure crumbling under the relentless assault. The Council ships still in dock were annihilated before they could even power up their shields. It was a massacre, and it was only the beginning. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Council's shipyards, depots, and supply lines were systematically destroyed, one after another. The human fleets moved with an efficiency that bordered on the mechanical, striking hard and fast before slipping away into the darkness, leaving nothing but wreckage in their wake. On the bridge of the Resolute, Admiral Kane watched as the reports came in, one by one. Each success was another step toward their ultimate goal. The Council had made its decision, and now they would pay the price. How long before they respond? Kane asked, his gaze still fixed on the holographic map. They'll scramble their fleets as soon as they figure out what's happening, Captain Holton replied. But without comm relays, it'll take time for them to coordinate. Hours, maybe even days. Good, Kane said. Let's make every second count. He turned to his officers, his voice calm but filled with purpose. This is what we've trained for, what we've prepared for. We are not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for our place in the galaxy. And we will not stop until the Council is broken. The officers saluted, their faces steeled with resolve. They knew the stakes. This wasn't just a war. It was humanity's declaration of independence, a statement to the galaxy that they would no longer be underestimated, dismissed, or ignored. The war had begun, and humanity would stop at nothing to ensure their victory.